Broadcasting from the Political Command Center in Nairobi, Kenya. I am Dr. David Matanga in Mombasa, Kenya. Thank you very much, viewers across the continent of Africa, for being there for us, standing by us, looking by us, doing by us, and moving by the direction of Africa. This show is Diplomatic Leaks. Wherever you are, good morning, good evening, good afternoon in the South Australia, New Zealand, and then in South America, Argentina. Ruto exports more cows than Argentina, which earns $2.5 billion. Cows to Burundi. How many people in Burundi eat meat? So these are some of the things that make Africa look like a laughing stock. In the studios in Nairobi is none other than Miriam Ogutu, our senior anchor, my co-presenter, and a co-host of this show. We shall be having a tick-tack, tick-tick-tick talk. Good morning, Miriam.
Hey, Doc, a very good morning to you and good morning to our viewers.
Thank you very much. The show today, and the topic is very familiar. The United Nations, the African Union chairperson has expressed his concern about the army, the rebel army, which is terrorizing, killing people in Democratic Republic of Congo near the Rwanda-Uganda border. In a statement that they issued this morning, the AU chairperson, Miriam will read the statement, says very clearly from our place, our technical team will give you the statement. The AU is concerned. But I have been on this platform telling you that there are few people in Africa you can trust their word. And for me, time has come for me to speak the truth, Jermaine. There are certain people in Africa whose words don't take them by the lip service. They come, they sit with you, they pretend they are your good friends, Miriam. But they are not really good friends. Some of you don't know. Some of you might think I'm a foolish man. But there are people in this continent, even if you gave me 1 million shillings, that go and work with them, I would rather not be earning that money and run away. I told you a few weeks ago that the president of Tanzania was very worried about joining peace talks, where even the people who fund the rebels themselves were on the table and talking about the rebels themselves seated on the table. Miriam, don't tell us who gives them the arms. Now the fighting has vindicated everybody, including me. I warned the people a long time ago about people quarrel. There are people in Africa, when they quarrel, just don't put your ear. Don't listen to their quarrel, because they will turn on you one day and you'll be finished. They are quarreling to divert your attention so that you focus thinking that they are quarreling and you pick one of them as a friend. But I'm just warning you people in Kenya, mukue na macho. One day you will say, I was right. The eruption of a fight in DRC Congo is a slap in the face to a new country that has just joined the East African Community, persuaded by the credentials of His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And this joined the East African Community, a landmark statement made in the previous few years. We have never received such a statement in the previous years. For DRC Congo to join, East African Community, that is great for us. But I'm telling you, as they join, you must be careful about their joining this East African Community, because I warn the people that Congo has a problem. You go to Congo, you are either swallowed. Congo is not like Mombasa. Or Congo can be compared to Mombasa. Anyway, you can enter Mombasa, but getting out of Mombasa is a saying, an old saying. It is rahisi kuingia Mombasa, lakini kutoka ngumu. Because the sweetness of the place. But the other part of Congo is you go in a conflict, you come out as a dead body. You go in to solve the conflict. If you are not careful, you could be sucked into the conflict. Uganda and Rwanda have always, they went into Congo in 1998, 1992, and 1998, 2000. They hammered each other. In 1998, walipigana huko mbaya sana in Kisangani. Up to today, that battle of Kisangani left a lot of scars between Rwanda and Uganda. These are like two men who went into somebody's house and started fighting in the house itself. Ziliwaka moto sana, walipigana mbaya sana. It was a heavy fight between Rwanda and Uganda. So the rebel groups that have been in Africa, who funds these rebel groups? Who gives the rebel groups money? Who gives them the arms? Surely, is there no force like the force of Uganda that went to dismantle the ADF that can go in the Congo and dismantle these rebels? Why are we sparing them? Why are we sparing them? Those are the questions that I will leave to my viewers. Each of you scratching your heads, but the reasons will come at the end of my show. Miriam, why is it Africa has got too many foreign bases on the continent? Give us the background notes. Good morning. Over to you. Take it off. Away.
Very well. So several African governments are hosting foreign military bases. This is despite the African Union Peace and Security Council's ongoing concerns about the proliferation of foreign military bases on the continent. Africa, the second largest continent and second most populous continent in the world, is threatened by the external security environment. The Horn of Africa has become an epicenter of over 10 foreign military bases, hosting bases of the United States, China and France, among other states. And the EU is aiming to relaunch 3 new military missions in West Africa, and Russia pushed Europe out of the Central African Republic and Mali and threatens to do so in Burkina Faso. The new missions ought to be in Burkina Faso. The new mission by the EU ought to be in Burkina Faso, one of the Gulf of Guinea states, and in Niger, according to a strategic review paper by the EU Foreign Service dated the 25th of May 2022, and that will be on Wednesday last week. The Niger mission is the first to go ahead after Nigerian authorities requested an EU logistic and maintenance center of excellence in the vicinity of Niamey, it said. But the EU is keen to go beyond this initial request to also cover a train and equip and accompany package of specific units, or even a full-scale military operation to accompany Nigerian armed forces to combat Burkinabe armed forces. During discussions at technical level, asked the EU for a similar package, and the EU Foreign Service said close to 2,000 American soldiers are involved in training missions in 40 African countries. American Special Forces operate across East Africa in so-called forward operation locations in Kenya and Somalia. Like in the US, France has either deployed military forces or established bases in a number of African countries. The country has more than 7,500 military personnel currently serving on the continent. Its largest presence is in the Sahel, especially in the border zone linking Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. Between 2008 and 2018, the Chinese Navy deployed 26,000 military personnel in a variety of maritime security operations in Africa. In 2017, China inaugurated its first overseas military base in Djibouti. This came after the U.S. established Camp Lemoa in Djibouti in 2003. India is another Asian nation that has increased its naval presence in Africa. The country has established a network of military facilities across the Indian Ocean to counter China's rising military footprint in the region. It also wants to protect its commercial sea lanes from piracy. India has an ongoing deployment that monitor developments in the Horn of Africa and Madagascar. The country also plans to establish 32 coastal radar surveillance stations, with sites in Seychelles, Mauritius, and other locations outside Africa. And when it comes to the Middle East, Turkey and United Arab Emirates, UAE, are the two countries with notable military presence in Africa. Turkey joined the International Counter-Piracy Task Force in the Somalia coast in 2009. In 2017, it opened a military base in Mogadishu, in Somalia. The purpose is to train recruits for the Somalia National Army, and Turkey will also support the Somali Navy and Coast Guard. And of course, the UAE has had a military base in Eritrea since 2015. It comprises a military airfield with aircraft shelters and a deep water naval port. The base has been used in operations against opposition forces in Yemen. So that is just a few of the countries and other interests from outside Africa that have had and still have interest in Africa.
Yes, Stephen, as you send me the link, there is no link, but I've sent you something which you can put on the map for us. Let's hear that clip once you are ready, but I don't have the link with me. I don't know why the link is not there, so that other people can be linked to see what we are talking about. But Miriam, you have elaborately talked about all these bases. What is the common denominator? What is the common thinking of an African government allowing bases on its soil? Is it for security of the Africans or for the interests of the people of Africa? Or the people where they come from? I think most of these bases, Miriam, are for the interests of the metros of Europe and the Gulf states and like China, India. Those are the interests. They guard the roots. They don't guard Africans. That's the point why I brought this. Why do we have too many foreign bases on its soil, on our soil, yet we cannot be guarded by even one of them? Why? Why do we suffer this every day? Why do we have this type of problems every day? When we cannot be guarded by the same forces that have come to Africa to use our soil, use our food, use our logistics, interfere with our social ecosystems, and then we don't gain. What do you gain? For example, Djibouti has got over 10 bases. Djibouti, has it elevated its position as having bases in the Red Sea? The purpose of those bases in Djibouti is to escort the oil, the products going to India, going to Southeast, going to China, the products coming from China going to Europe. Those bases don't help us at all. Has Djibouti improved its GDP? Djibouti is one of the most poorest countries on the continent of Africa. The only thing that you have in Djibouti is stability of democracy, because people have feared because of the foreign involvement. Governments there rely on the foreign bases to even oppress the locals even more. Miriam, I tell you, there is no benefit for an African to have a base in its country. The only benefit that I see in Kenya, for example, are the people in Nanyuki. They get involved in the local activities. You see Nanyuki is becoming a center. The British base in Africa does a very good job. It mixes with the locals. It does intermarriages. If you go around in Nanyuki, people speak very good English. Because you have to go to school to come to be able to work near those places. That's okay. There's a benefit there. And it is not a base. It is just an agreement which is bilateral between Britain and Kenya. That you can remain here, you can train our army, you can help us on logistics for a pandemic. Pandemics come, these people took part, some of the aid that came in by the British government to come and give Kenya support.
Hello again. So the African Union Peace and Security Council says it's concerned about the growing number of African governments hosting foreign military bases
in West Africa, for example. The bases in Mali, for example. The bases in Tripoli, for example. They are more of war-like bases. The warlike bases that Turkey has gone to Libya to kill Libyans and the staff authority against UAE that had also supported the government in Benghazi. So Turkey went to support the government in Tripoli. Have these people killed Africa? Are there too many bases in Africa that don't safeguard African security and violent situation? Let's bring in Paul Onyango from Mombasa, who has been online. Paul Onyango, good morning.
Good morning to you, Daktari, and Miriam Ogutu at the station.
Yes.
At large.
You are we hear you. You are one of the pilots. In fact, you are pilots of what are they called? Drones?
Unmanned aircraft.
Unmanned aircraft. I am very happy to have you on the show today again. People thought you have trained and you actually you fly unmanned aircraft. Now, these unmanned aircraft, they are aircraft that deliver medicine. They are aircraft that deliver the seeds. They are aircraft that pick passengers. They are aircraft that spot danger and send emergencies. Which one of them you handle in Africa, please, Onyango?
The ones that are permitted within the Kenyan law, we call them rotary. We have two types of unmanned.
Yes.
We have fixed wing, then we have the rotary. The rotary, which means they have propellers.
Yes.
So for you to operate a drone, you must be licensed. You must have a certification from Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. And also, before you fly a drone, you must seek authority. Your information must reach the intelligence services of military. They must give you an okay. So within Nairobi is a controlled airspace. Most regions are controlled airspace within Nairobi. So for you to fly there, the military must be made aware. They are the ones who own the airspace. So they will open for you. Otherwise, those aircrafts cannot take off. They will even show you on the screen.
Okay. So that is very good. Then you are able to tell us more.
Yeah, there was a project that I did last week.
Yes.
The project was under the Kura program. It was the largest in the world. We were flying 10 drones at the same time between Ngong Road and the Jogo Road. So it was the biggest. It has never been done anywhere on Earth.
So when you fly and talk to the people on the ground, or you fly to pick pictures?
No, we were taking the traffic congestion between certain time of the day, early in the morning and also late in the evening. So those data is used to do some legislation, city planning for future.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's come to the main. That is a very beneficial medium. You can call it. It benefits the community. But let's compare that to an army base where foreign troops bring their ships, relax, leave the ships on water and come ashore. Is there a big benefit that we get as a country or countries in Africa? Like if the army, luckily Kenya doesn't have too many bases. Kenya has got one naval base for the Americans, which is in Manda Bay. And then it has got British soldiers in Nanyuki who have been there from time memorial during colonial days up to today. So there are benefits of their being there. Nanyuki Airport is being upgraded, and you can see very soon the culture around Nanyuki is becoming the second inland tourist destination. Instead of people going to Mombasa, people tend to be going to Nanyuki of late. I've seen several people saying, I'm going to Nanyuki for a short break. So that is as a result of the British being in Nanyuki, there's a benefit, there's a push towards Nanyuki because one, the culture there seems to be accommodative, the changes, even in the voting, when you see the voting, Nanyuki has been one of the most peaceful places for voting, Miriam. You don't see, despite the fact that it has so many nationalities, cultures, it remains one of the most peaceful in Mount Kenya compared to Nyandarua. Nanyuki looks more civilized, they vote, they don't disagree, no many arguments. The democracy in Nanyuki seems to have grown. I wish Javani Karanja was here to tell us more from his county. But there is a benefit of the British soldiers being in this country. But there are some countries in Africa that have brought me shame, especially when you talk about Djibouti, you talk about Libya, you talk about Guinea, you talk about Zambia now, Miriam. Zambia has allowed a foreign base there. Let's play that clip before Miriam next comes in. Let's play the clip which I've sent to Stephen. Thank you.
Hello again. So the African Union Peace and Security Council says it's concerned about the growing number of African governments hosting foreign military bases on the continent. Around 13 foreign countries have a military presence in Africa. This has raised several issues, including the lack of monitoring of weapons to and from these bases. We speak more on this with international relations expert, Professor Anthony van Nieuwerkerk from the Wits School of Governance. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for joining us. Is there cause for concern with so many countries on the continent hosting these foreign military bases?
Yeah, well, good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity. I think if we in Africa were able to maintain peace and security ourselves, then we wouldn't have had this influx of foreign military on the continent, which means there's a problem somewhere. Let me quickly say that there are three main reasons why a external party, a country in the international community would consider sending troops or soldiers or defense force personnel to Africa. The first one is peacekeeping, and there's a number of peacekeeping missions under the United Nations flag on the continent with participation from many, many international community members. The second one is there are many bilateral arrangements between governments around training and capacity building, but also fighting terrorism or violent extremism and crime and so on, which is also okay. The third one is where we should be concerned, and that is external parties enter the continent and they send soldiers and defense force personnel for their own particular self-interest. And that is of two kinds. It's either a geostrategic motivation or it's for commercial purposes. And I think the latter one, this category of self-interest, is the one that we should be concerned about.
Right. So when going through these motivations, let's look at peacekeeping. You have a country like Sudan, South Sudan, for instance, where there's instability, and a number of countries on the continent where there's instability. So you ask yourself what it is that they are doing exactly.
Yeah. So the peacekeeping part for me is less of a problem than the other two that I've listed. Because there's an agreement, on the level of the United Nations and the level of the African Union. And there's a unique partnership between the UN and the AU to provide for a process whereby troop contributing countries send personnel into UN managed or overseen peacekeeping operations in countries such as Sudan, Darfur, Libya, Somalia, Mali, the DRC, and others. And I think that's generally accepted. And the AU is quite clear and on record saying that as Africans we have the will to make and keep the peace, but not always the means to do so. So that international effort that's coordinated by the United Nations, I think, and by the Security Council in particular, where South Africa has a seat this year, makes a lot of sense. So that is a form of international cooperation for the common good.
So when we look at the issue of self-interest, by no stretch of the imagination is this an accusation, but we have a problem with access to weapons on the continent, and hence that is also fueling the conflict that we see on the continent. Could it be that the proliferation of these weapons that we find on the continent are because self-interest has to be served here? There has to be, some sort of control that is exerted by these foreign powers.
Yeah, no, so this business of self-interest is really problematic for us as Africans. I mean, the first subcategory there that I identify is geostrategic. And geostrategic would refer to interest, particularly in the Horn of Africa, where many foreign powers have set up military bases in the smallest country that you can find on the continent, which is Djibouti. And unfortunately, there are, I think, 6 or 7 military bases now with thousands of foreign troops. And they are all there for a particular reason, which is the dynamic of the Middle East and the flow of oil and other resources around the Horn of Africa. So you find the presence of foreign troops in Djibouti, in the Horn of Africa, where there's heavy political tension, and Africa is simply being used as a base to position these foreign powers. The same goes for, it's even disturbing if you think that idyllic Indian Ocean islands, the Seychelles, Mauritius, and so on, are being used, or I can even say abused, by very powerful foreign forces, the French, the Americans, the Indians, who simply use these as parking spaces to put their foreign intelligence and their ears on the ground, because they've got other fish to fry. They worry about the Russians and the Chinese moving around the Middle East and the Indian Ocean. And then the last thing I need to say is that there's hypocrisy at play as well. The big five in the Security Council, who are supposed to look after peace and security on our behalf, are also the world's biggest arms dealers and arms traders. And where there's a conflict in Africa, on the one hand, they say we will bring personnel to keep the peace, but with the other hand, they buy and sell weapons to all sorts of interested parties in the conflict. And often it's there's no scruples in international arms trade. And for this reason, we find thousands of troops and foreign interests in Africa exploiting a very delicate and difficult situation for us as Africans, because you might recall I said at the beginning, we have the political will often, but not the means to make sure that our people can live in peace and security.
Unfortunately, and quite interestingly, the African Union has declared 2020 the year of silencing the guns, just where bilateral agreements are concerned. Do we see African countries, maybe a tit-for-tat situation, where we also send over some of our military, troops? Do we have military bases in the West?
That's a naughty question. You know, with the violence in America, you know, Trump might, you know, benefit from peacemaking and peacekeeping efforts by us as Africans. Of course, we've got lots of experience, but there's no way that the dominant West, or let me expand that to the dominant Chinese, the Russians, and the Europeans. There's no way that they would counter or countenance an interference in their sovereign, in their backyard. But they see it fit to interfere in our efforts, in our business. Let me quickly say on a more serious note, Africans participate in international peacekeeping operations and missions elsewhere in the world. But again, it's under the UN flag, the so-called blue helmets, and that is very strictly controlled and regulated. What Africans don't do is go to South America or North America or to Australia and exploit natural resources and provide them with weapons of war. I must put a footnote to that dramatic sentence. You know, some countries, like South Africa, has an arms industry, and we do sell arms and ammunition to other countries in conflict. The Middle East comes to mind. You will find ammunition being used in that very tragic situation in Yemen. Via second and third parties. Our arms and ammunition are used there. And I don't think that is a healthy situation. There's the problem of ethics of selling weapons. But in general, Africa doesn't interfere with the world's, you know, conflicts. The world interferes with Africa's conflicts, and often it's done for their own self-interest.
And therein lies the problem. Thank you for your time this afternoon. International relations expert, Professor Anthony van Nieuwerkerk.
Very well. That is an interview from the ETV in South Africa. Okay.
We are back.
Yeah.
I can't hear you. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Oh, I can't hear you myself.
Okay. Well, maybe the production will help you with that, because we can hear you from here.
Now we can hear each other?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can't hear you. You hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, on that one I'm hearing. When I put on this, I can't hear you now.
Okay, I don't know if you're able to hear now, so that we go on.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
You hear me, Miriam?
Yes, yes, we can hear you from here.
Oh, no.
Very well. That was a clip, a conversation from the ETV in South Africa, and they were looking at this similar topic that we're looking at this morning, about the presence of, too many foreign bases in Africa. And of course,
and unfortunately, I think I can't hear Miriam, but you can hear me. That is the story of the Africa that we have. And I don't know, until the production team, Stephen, comes, I don't know what I've done with my microphone. That one becomes black.
Okay, all right. We truly apologize for that a technical hitch. So once Dr. Matsanga is able to fix his system, then I think he shall be back. In the meantime, I was just doing a recap of what we just had from that conversation, and I think what I agree with the international relations person that was speaking on this matter is he started by saying if we could maintain our own security, then there wouldn't be a need to have we will just wait until Dr. Matsanga gets his system right to avoid the interference.
Very much, Miriam, I'm here now.
Okay.
What?
Go ahead.
And I've gone to a wrong camera. So thank you very much. I think there you get me now? Yeah, thank you very much, Miriam. The situation, as explained by the Professor Anthony Van, an expert on international relations, actually used to teach also in Canterbury University some time back. And it is a very terrible situation on the continent of Africa when you have armies that don't help us. For example, he gave the example of South Sudan, where the war has been going on, and we have an army there, UNIMIS. It has now been turned into UMIDIS or whatever, I don't know what it's called. But they can't help. I mean, the period that there has been no big war in South Sudan, people have been planning to arm themselves slowly. William, you realize that they are now armed to the teeth here. It is a matter of a whistle. One whistle. Believe me or not, South Sudan will start a full-scale war. But the army of UN that came there knows these signs, gets these reports, gets these intelligence reports. So the big question that I put to the panel, do these armies help us, help their interests, or do they have any positive role they play in our security in Africa? Media.
Yeah, a couple of issues that I don't know if you're able to hear now.
I hear you.
Okay.
100%.
All right, good. Because I was trying to make a point earlier, but because of the communication hitch we had, we were not hearing each other, so I was interrupted. But anyway, one of the key things I've picked from that interview at the beginning, the international relations expert was saying is that he was saying if Africa could maintain its own peace and security, then there wouldn't be a need for this, foreign military presence in the continent. While I do agree with part of the, part of what he's saying, but also I think he's perhaps failing to understand that some of these conflicts that are being experienced in the continent that have been perennial, one, a lot of them were started and dates back to the colonial masters, and others continue to be funded by these foreign countries. So they have actively funded or created a situation whereby these countries will not know peace. And we can go to several examples in the continent, but I will not do that for the interest of time. So as much as I do understand that the presence of this military bases in Africa, maybe because Africa, some of the countries are not able to handle their own security, that could be true, but also a lot of this conflict that these foreign presence are here to help have been created. The situations have been created by these foreign powers. I think there has to be an underlying, that statement. But also from my own perspective and what is happening in the continent. And I think you've asked this military presence, are they there for the benefit of Africa or not? First of all, we have to acknowledge the exchange programs they do have for our security forces, where sometimes they get good training on matters and also, others. So we do benefit to some extent, but of course we have to understand all of these are in line with this country's foreign policy. At the end of the day, it is not about us. They're not here really to ensure that Africa is safe. And when you look at the countries that these countries have a huge presence, this military presence, you will realize that these countries have also a huge interest, be it in mineral resources, be it the people there, be it what they're getting from these countries and the ties and what it is and the agenda that they're trying to run in these countries. So it's never about securing Africa and for the best interest of Africa. It always ties to their foreign policies and how, in the great scheme of things, this will benefit their countries. So we always must remember that. And of course, the third point is the issue to do with proxy wars. We've seen now Russia, the countries that it has now started getting ground, like in the Central African Republic, like in Mali. Other European countries are packing and leaving, and I think that is what they're doing. We're seeing them fighting over there. The proxy wars have been transferred in these countries in Africa, and if you're not keen, this will spill over in other things that you may not be able to handle as a continent. So there is a proxy war aspect in the presence of this heavily military presence in the continent. The other thing I would, of course, want to tie to the reason why we see this heavy military presence in the continent is, of course, when it comes to superiority contest that these countries have heard in the West, in the in the Middle East, and we are seeing them playing out here in the continent. They want to see how many countries can they have influence over, how many countries can they control. We have seen France has refused to remove itself from its former colonies, and Russia is there to challenge that right now. And we've seen the British still, trying to remain dominant in the countries that were its colonies. So I think they just control, but also influence, that and dominance in these African countries, so that their presence is more dominant compared to other foreign countries. So that has to do with that. And also the last one is, of course, these countries, especially the European Union and the US, and these others, democracy and governance. They want to spread their ideals on democracy, democratic systems and how they think, a democracy should look like, how they feel good governance should look like, how they feel human rights, should look like. And they want to bring, to export their ideals and how they feel and think about these things into the continent of Africa. And we've seen others imposing. And that's why you see countries like Zimbabwe are heavily sanctioned. That's why you see other countries across, Africa getting sanctions, from these Western countries especially, who perceive as though these countries in Africa are not aligning the democratic and governance practices to what they feel is ideal and to what matches what they believe should be as far as governance and democracy is concerned. But at the end of the day, I think it all boils down to foreign policy, and the foreign policy in every country. When you see the US in Kenya, when you see the British is in Kenya, and I know, Doc, you've said they have a heavy military presence in Nanyuki, and we know that at the end of the day, it really has nothing to do with us and us benefiting. It is the British, protecting its interest, protecting its presence. And when you go there, you have a lot of white, settlers there. They own huge ranches, so they have to protect their interest and their presence in this country. So at the end of the day, it's not really for us, as much as some of these programs we get to benefit, but in the bigger scheme of things, really, it has nothing to do with Africa and its benefits and its people. It's about how is this serving their own foreign policy. So they bring it in a way that we will not see, really. And so we'll think, oh, we're benefiting. So they're here, they're training our people. And so they hide and they camouflage in that. So we really don't see what exactly they're doing, but it's about dominance, it's about influence, it's about what we see happening there and taking over what they believe and spreading their own ways and their own ideals in this continent, and it just boils down to foreign policies.
First of all, Thank you very much. Paul, you have any comments to make? Because I have a different way to. Miriam, you've made very important statements that are very vital. But the bottom line, the difference between the occupying armies and the man raised 3 points. Their interests, the interest of those countries, which is one of those you have mentioned. Yeah, there is interest. But there is a difference among the occupational armies, which I'll come to when I'm making my submission. Mombasa man, Paul, make your contribution.
Yeah, I have a different perspective, even when we look at our Kenyan case. When you look at these foreign armies setting up bases, there have been some cases arising on the side of human rights abuses. Like there was a case that was there in Nanyuki, where a young lady was killed or was murdered. The case is still, I think, is still in the process. Then we have also had in the previous years whereby the training bombs, some of them did not explode. When the herdsmen from Masai or the Samburus had their cattle, they normally injure them. Some of them mistake them for metals. They got injuries. So there's been some those kind of negligence around their training sites, which sometimes normally cause injuries to the animals or to the locals. Another thing, in Congo, DRC, there was a report by the UN sometimes back about concerning some UN peacekeepers who went on rampage, raping women or impregnating the whole village of women. I think it was a very bad act. I don't know, the army was from, I think it was from one of the countries, maybe I think Bangladesh. So when you look at the foreign armies that mostly come in African continent, one of the factors that sometimes that make them, their area of operation becomes gloomy, not very specific. It's the mandate they are given. The mandate they are given sometimes is not very clear, such that they can undertake their duty to achieve a specific role for which they were sent to do. So like in the case of Congo, people were sent to create peace and harmony among the communities. Same UN peacekeepers from other countries, they engage in trade, they engage in other practices, which is not for work for which they were sent for that. So we find that the implementation of the UN or the peacekeeping mandate is not being done as per the way it is written. So this is causing some of the conflicts, or is furthering that conflict to another level to which we are not obtaining the results. Another thing, when you look at these army bases from West Africa, North Africa, they have different mandates or different reasons for their setting up. The ones in Kenya are mainly meant for training and also for logistic issues. The ones are within the DRC, they are meant to boost the local troops to sustain peace and also ensure the government is continuing with the activity. But given that in the entire world, we have differences in the political line, like a case in Mali and also in Central Africa, where the French troops were withdrawn, then a private company was contracted by the Russian company to send some military machineries to take over from the French army. You find there's a lot of conflict that is coming up. When you send a private army from Russia they are not going to act in the interest with the international law. These are people who are going to act in the interest of another country. So we find this conflict will never end. It will never end. It will continue brewing. So we are not going to head anywhere unless those African governments, they want to seek peace. They need to come up with a mandate that such that if it is, I think African Union, they have their own Africa peacekeeping, like the one they're doing in Somalia. Even though the mandate has not been well expanded, but if these governments that go for foreign countries, they can decide, let us Africans do it for the Africans, the way it is done in Somalia. So when we reach that level, I think we are going to get out of this other conflict from other countries that make the conflict continue growing up. That's my take.
Okay,
All right. Thank you very much, Miriam. You made very key issues. There is only one determinant factor that proves history, that wherever British bases have been, there have been of very significant improvement to the lives of the people of that region. The interests lie in humanitarian service that the British forces do give the areas where they are. For example, the British forces engage themselves in humanitarian activities, such as supply of drugs, if there is an earthquake, blankets, and other, So there are two types of foreign armies. There is an army that is specifically there for keeping security and an eye on the developments of that particular region for strategic importance. For example, the ships in the deep sea of Red Sea, maybe where Jesus crossed over to go into which is very deep. They are there for strategic importance of hitting North Korea and China and Russia. Now, the British forces bases, most of them are on humanitarian grounds. You find the soldiers are involved in agricultural products, humanitarian exercises, cattle rustling, prevention of ecosystem degradation of ecosystems. These are done by where they are, like in Nanyuki. So I will categorically state, Miriam, that two things, there are three categories. And I do agree with you, the point I picked from Professor Anthony Van is why do they come? They come because we are not ourselves. We don't have anything. We created these conflicts ourselves. But do they come to solve the conflict, or they come also with other intentions? Take an example of Zambia allowing a British, an American base inside the Lusaka of AFCOM. What does it help? The troubles of Africa are on the seas in Mozambique. So for you to set an internal AFCOM, it doesn't help many people. It's maybe gathering information and intelligence systems that of listening posts. So I agree with you totally that it is true some of the armies on the continent, like the Russian contingent in Mali, the Turkish contingent in Libya, they are creating chaos. And very soon, while they create chaos, there is a point that I wanted to make here. America is policing other nations, but America is leaving its own country vulnerable to radicalism. It is growing every day, Miriam, that as much as America wants to police other countries in the world, the homegrown radicalization of white supremacy, Muslim fundamentalism, Christian fundamentalism is growing. The hatred of races is growing, is much bigger than it was those days ago or years ago. So it is growing that a man picks a gun and goes to a school and kills children who don't know anything. So these are some of the things that the international subject of diplomatic leaks can look at. And I just want to thank you very much for it. Analyst, there's something else I would deserve to go for lunch, if Miriam gives me permission. We have been here for 3 hours, actually now coming to almost 4 hours. Yeah, for 3 hours at the top of the hour. We have been broadcasting live from 9 o'clock to now. We need to have a break. We want to thank all of you. We resume at 3 p.m. with Diaspora Dispatches. How prepared are we on the pandemic? Miriam, again, yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta told people to be very prepared about the pandemic of COVID-19. People had lowered their guard, but time is coming again when we should increase our guard, wash our hands, stay a distance, avoid crowded places, wear your mask. This COVID is coming back. So Miriam will tell us all these plus African news at 3 p.m. This station, therefore, is for Africa with Africa by Africa. Thank you very much. Back in Nairobi, thank you. God bless you.
Bye-bye.